Please comment, like, and subscribe. Also, be sure to hit that notification bell so that you can be notified whenever I upload a new video. Welcome back to my channel. Today I will be sublimating on a 20-ounce skinny tumbler. I'll be using my convection oven, which is just a toaster oven with a convection oven feature. This is my design that I'm going to be putting on the tumbler. I actually have this design in my first video. And the design was made by me for me. And so I wrap my paper around my tumbler and I turn my tumbler upside down to make sure that the paper is lined perfectly with the top edge of the cup. And don't forget to turn on your toaster oven. I actually turned mine on before I finished taping my tumbler. However, you can turn it on at any point. It doesn't take too long to get up to temperature. And then I make sure that I pull my paper tightly around my cup. The main issue that a lot of people have is not wrapping the paper around the tumbler tight enough so there's air in there. And that's where you get your ghosting, where the bottom edge of your tumbler can be messed up. So I pull my paper very tightly and I put the tape on one side and pull it across to the other side tightly. And so I continue to do this all the way down the cup. And one reason for using this method in a toaster oven, because you can get a great seal on it. When you use a your tumbler press, you don't necessarily have to put as much tape as what I'm going to be using in this video. And the taping method that I'm using, I actually got it from Snazzy Moon Designs. I don't follow his taping method to the T. However, I do use a lot of his techniques because my tumblers come out perfectly. If you hear somebody yelling in the background, that's my son. Don't even worry about it. I use a lot of his techniques, but I do add some things myself. I do some different things, but before, when I was doing the tumblers and wrapping them, I was having a lot of air in them, a lot of ghosting. I messed up quite a bit of tumblers. Okay, and then I put a piece of heat tape, and this is heat tape that I'm using. I put a piece of heat tape at the bottom of the tumbler and I wrap it around the bottom to seal the bottom edge of the paper to the tumbler. And I wrap mine tight, but not too tight. I don't want it gathering up the paper or putting ripples in the paper, even though, I mean, you can't always avoid that and you can rub them out. So here I'm rubbing out the small creases that I have at the bottom of the paper, and when I'm rubbing, I just fold that tape over to the bottom. So I'm actually rolling my finger and rolling my finger with the tape going to the bottom of the tumbler. And I'm just checking to make sure that the tightness of the paper on my tumbler is tight enough for me. So I saw one spot that wasn't tight enough in my opinion, so I just reapplied, removed the tape and then reapplied it to the tumbler. And I'm going to be taping the top, doing the same thing at the top that I did at the bottom of the tumbler. Okay, and roll that tape over. And then after I do this, I get a long piece of heat tape and run it down the seam of the tumbler. Okay, so what I'm doing now is taking a long strip of heat tape and running it down the seam of the paper, and make sure to press that in very good. Press it down, and then that excess tape I just put it inside the cup. Okay, and what I'm doing now is actually getting the tool that I use to run down the seam to make sure that the tape is sealed. I use a bone folder, and it's just like a paper creaser. I use that. I run that down the both sides of the tumbler. Well, both sides of the joint. And then I smooth that out to just make sure that it is completely sealed. And if I see any type of air, I make sure to get that out. If I see any type of space in that tape, I make sure to get that out. And this is really key to having a seamless or barely noticeable seam. And not all tumblers are going to be seamless because there's a seam. You just can't get around it sometimes. But the seams can look almost perfect to someone who doesn't do tumblers. Okay, and then I get my masking tape, and what I do is I tape the top of the tumbler and I tape the bottom of the tumbler as well. It's just a little added piece of security. And when I'm taping my tumbler up, I make sure that I put my tape on one side, and the side that I put my tape on, that is the side that it's going across. So I put in that direction to have the paper seam go across the other side of the paper. And hopefully that makes sense. Okay, and then here I'm putting my tumbler in the shrink wrap. And I like the shrink wrap method. I don't have a problem with it now, but when I first started, I definitely had an issue with it. So what I'm going to do now is take my tumbler to another room to shrink the shrink wrap. I don't have my heat gun in this room at the moment. So once I do that, and I'm just showing you here how the shrink wrap looks on the tumbler, but once I do that, I'll set my timer to 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Okay, and once that timer is set, I'll put my tumbler inside of the convection oven, and I always turn my tape seam to the back or to the front when I first start, so that I know when it's time to turn it for the last 2 minutes and 15 seconds that I've turned it 180 degrees. Okay, at this point, you would see me removing the tumbler and turning it 180 degrees to finish sublimating it for 2 more minutes and 15 seconds. However, I lost that footage, so you see me removing the tumbler, sitting it down to let it cool just a bit, not even necessarily just to cool, because I do have heat gloves. However, if you don't have heat gloves, you don't want to do this without any heat gloves, okay? Unless you let it cool. So now we're going to go ahead and remove that plastic, the shrink wrap. We're going to go ahead and remove the paper, and this is where you reveal your beautiful work. It's a shocker every time. It's like Christmas. You're surprised every time. So I'm going to finish removing the paper, and look at this beautiful tumbler. It came out great. I couldn't have done it any better. It came out absolutely beautiful. And when you see the seam, you can barely even tell that there is a seam there. The only way you can tell really is if you have a trained eye, or if you're used to looking at these seams, then you may notice it. Other than that, it's pretty seamless. And my tumbler says, I'll make you feel my attitude without saying a word. Crafty Leo. Okay, and I did, yes, design all of this. It is gorgeous. You don't even see like a seam line at the top. And then maybe at the bottom it's a little bit darker. You would be able to tell if you know what you're looking for. It came out absolutely beautiful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and keep on crafting, crafters.